Hello and welcome back. As you can probably tell by that title screen, by that intro screen, we're going to be talking about Smash TV today. And not only are we going to be talking about Smash TV, but we're going to be talking about Smash TV for the NES. And we're also going to talk about some weird misinformation that I found. But we'll get there. We've got a lot of ground to cover. First of all, what is Smash TV? Smash TV is an arcade game that came out in 1990. It is set in the far future year of 1999, where everybody has gone crazy and they want violence. They want reality TV, and the two characters here in the center of the screen are in a futuristic game show where they have to battle their way through a giant TV studio shaped arena full of monsters and collect fabulous prizes and in order to escape and win their freedom. But Smash TV is a game that is known as a twin stick shooter. What is a twin stick shooter? Well, a twin stick shooter is a game where you have a character on the screen, and I'll demonstrate this here shortly. Who will you have two joysticks. Your controls are two joysticks, why it's called twin stick. The one joystick moves your character around, and then the other joystick you would use to move or to show the direction you're going to be shooting in. And by the way, you can see a video of me and Mr. Ellipsis playing through the arcade version of Smash TV on this channel. It's part of a Midway Arcade Treasures collection. But in 1990, it was ported to everything that could run it, that could conceivably run it. Probably one of the best ports at the time was the Super NES, and that was because it had the four buttons on the right hand side. I don't have a controller handy I can show you, but the left the control pad, the Super NES control pad would be what you would use to move your character, and then the other four buttons were set up kind of in a cross shape, kind of a cross shape, and so you could use those to aim your weapon, and it worked pretty well. It was actually a pretty good compromise between the home consoles and the arcade. But the NES, which is the one we've got up here, it didn't have that. If you're familiar with the NES controls at all, you know that it only has, in fact, I've got an NES Advantage here to demonstrate. It has one joystick for movement, and it's got two buttons for firing. And does that work? Well, kind of. You need to, in fact, I will show you how it works. So bear with me 1 second while I plug this in. In fact, before I do that, I do want to point out some features of the NES Advantage, because this is going to become important later. The NES Advantage, trying not to block my mouth so I don't get muffled, has a few interesting features. It's got an actual joystick. It's got A and B buttons here. These are up here are turbo fire buttons. You push that in, you enable turbo on there, and you can use this dial to adjust the amount or how quickly the turbo actuates. I can't really see it through my hand here. It's got the start and select buttons here on the side. It's got a slow motion button, which all it does is just presses the start button as quickly as it can, which sort of kind of simulates slow motion. And one of the more interesting features is the switch. It has a 1 and a 2 on it. And the reason it has a 1 and a 2 on it is because it has two controller plugs on it built in. The white stripe signifies player 1, the other one is player 2. You plug it in to both controller ports, and then that way, if you want to switch to controlling the second player, or if you want to pass this to the second player when it's their turn, you just flip the switch to player 2, and you don't have to do anything. You can both share the controller, which is kind of important because these were expensive. back in the NES's heyday. I remember they cost at least as much, if not more, than an actual game cartridge. So it was quite the investment. But will this work for Smash TV? Well, I'm going to plug it in here, and we'll see how well it replicates the arcade experience. So I'm going to plug it in here. Plug in. I'll actually just go ahead and plug both of them in. We'll press start, and you'll see that we've got several different options: 1 player, 1 controller; 1 player, 2 controllers; 2 players, 2 controllers; and 2 players, 4 controllers. These are going to come into play here shortly, but I've only got 1 controller plugged in, so I'm going to press start, and the game will start. Now, the controls, whenever you're playing with 1 controller, are a little strange. You move with the joystick. You fire. If you hold the A button down, you fire in the direction that you're pointing. However, if you press and hold the B button, you will fire in the last direction that you were firing in while you were holding the A button, which is super confusing. But let's say I'm running to the left and I'm shooting with the A button, and I let go of the A button to run around, and I'm running up, or running down, and I press the A button. Oh, sorry, I screwed that all up. I'm running in an upward direction. I just fired up, so I'm going to run down, and then I'll run to the right and press B, and all of a sudden I'm firing in the last direction that I fired in. It's very hard to do. It's a compromise. It's probably one of the best compromise you could have. I don't like it much, but what are you gonna do? Oh, and I want a sleek 1999 Roadster. So it works. It barely works, but it works. But this is a twin stick shooter, and if you really want to replicate the experience of playing Smash TV, you need to have 2 NES Advantages, or 2 whatever joysticks. And there's a video that came out recently in 2004. Recent is relative, where it's a Cinemassacre video called James and Mike Mondays. I'm checking my notes. Where they play Smash TV, and they say that you can't play Smash TV with 2 NES Advantages. They don't really elaborate on why they think you can't do that. They say that it won't fit, and that you need a 4 score, which you don't. Because I remember back September of 1991, Nintendo Power Magazine, they had a feature on Smash TV. It was a new game coming out at the time, and they say in the article that you could use 2 NES Advantages to replicate the experience of playing the arcade version of Smash TV at home. And they had a picture of it and everything. And I remember at the time thinking that, well, I'm never going to be able to do that. NES Advantages are expensive. I've only got 1. I'm not going to ever have 2. So why? It's just something I never thought of. But then I got another one. I have 2 NES Advantages. So can you use these to play Smash TV in a dual stick configuration? And I say you can. And I think part of the confusion comes from these 2 plugs. The thing is, you don't need to plug both of these in. You only need to plug in one of them. It doesn't matter which one, to whichever control port that you want. The one with the white stripe is connected to the switch position 1. So as long as I have this in switch position 1, I can plug the cable with the white stripe into controller port 1 and leave the other one unplugged. Or I can plug the one with the stripe into controller port 2. And suddenly, even though the NES Advantage is set to controller port 1, it's really just the 1 is connected to this port, or to this cable. So I can use 2 NES Advantages to play in a dual stick configuration. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to remove the controller port. The NES Advantage here is no longer plugged into port 2. It's only plugged into port 1. The switch is switched to position number 1. I'm going to rotate it so that the stick is pointing away from me. It's pointing in the upward position. And I'm going to take the other NES Advantage here, and I'm going to take its white striped cable, and I'm going to plug it into port 2. There we go. So now I have 2 NES Advantages, both rotated in the proper orientation, and we are going to press start on the one that's plugged into port 1, and now I can select 1 player, 2 controllers, and press start. So now I should have controls that more closely replicate the experience that you get playing Smash TV in the arcade. So now it's much easier for me to walk around with the left stick, and then I can use the right stick to aim whatever direction. And of course, I'm terrible at this game, and it's a lot harder when you don't have infinite continues like I did with the when I was playing the arcade version. But it's much, much, much easier to play this when the right stick controls the direction that you're firing in, the left stick controls how you move. I'm not going to play through the whole game right now. 2 reasons for that. One, because I can't. I don't have that kind of time. But the other reason is because there was one more option. Oh yeah. There's the map of the first stage. Shows me how to get to Mutoid Man if I was so inclined. And I'm going to reset again here. Take us back to the title screen. And there's one more point in that Cinemassacre video that I wanted to address. And that was the idea that they bring it up. They talk about how it would be to perfectly replicate the experience. And you saw the title screen here. It says 2 players, 4 controllers. And they do. They're playing the game with 4 of the handheld controllers, but they say to really get the true experience that you need to have 4 NES Advantages and a 4 score. Well, what's a 4 score? A 4 score is a multi-tap. This is a 4 score. It has 4 controller ports, and it's got this weird double control port plug thingy that you have to plug this into both controllers at once. You cannot do the thing with the NES Advantage and just plug one in. It also has a button here where you can switch between 2 and 4 player modes, and you can also have turbo fire for the A and B buttons, but it's all of the A and or B buttons that are on this controller, or that are plugged into the 4 score. So so I guess nobody has an advantage. I mean, unless you have an advantage. But they say that you would have to have 4 NES Advantages and a 4 score, or 4 NES Advantages to play Smash TV in 2-player mode and get the real experience. But they just didn't work. They tried it and it didn't work. But you would need to have 4 NES Advantages to even try it. But that's crazy. Nobody has 4 NES Advantages, right? I mean, I have these two. I have this one. I have this one. So should I plug all these in and see what happens? I think I should. So I'm going to actually cut this here so you don't hear me fumbling around trying to plug all this stuff in. With the magic of video editing, I shall return with 4 NES Advantages plugged in. And we are back. You can't really see it right now, but there are 4 NES Advantage controllers plugged in. These two, and these two. They are plugged in. They're all have the white stripe cable plugged into a 4-score. The 4-score is plugged into the NES. The NES is plugged into the TV. The TV is plugged into the capture card. The capture card is plugged into my computer. And we are going to, hopefully, my desk is a complete mess right now, so it's really hard to play this. But we're going to try. We're going to see what happens if I take 4 NES Advantages and see if I can get the true dual stick controls to work. Now I'm going to have to make some concessions here. I'm actually going to start with 1 player 2 controllers, and the reason let's try it. Let's just try it. I was going to say I have limitations. I have human limitations. I have a limited amount of hands to control these controllers. I have fewer hands than I have joysticks to control here. So I can't actually control both players at the same time, and I have no one handy to use the other 2 controllers. But I'm going to try this anyway. We're going to see how it works. I'm assuming it does work. I haven't really tried this. We're going to hit start. Let's go! And we're going to see what happens. Alright. I'll be looking off to the side here, which I probably should have put the camera somewhere else, but I'm controlling the blue player. I walk directly into an enemy. But you can see the dual stick controls work here. I can move around. I can shoot independently of the direction I'm going. I don't have to use these weird A-B button shenanigans. Trying to protect player red here. And now I'm going to grab the other set of controllers. And you can tell I'm using the other controllers because they're squeaky. And yeah, look, there it is. I can control now the red player with the 2 joysticks, just as if I had an actual arcade machine. This is indistinguishable from the arcade experience, except the graphics are worse. There's less music. But other than that, I mean, it's got the voice samples. It's got Mutoid Man. What else do you need? Anyway, that is that's pretty much it. I just wanted to demonstrate that I wanted to correct some misinformation online. I know that if it wasn't for misinformation, if misinformation wasn't available, wasn't allowed on the internet, then 3/4 of the content on the internet would disappear. I get it. I understand it. But maybe something like this helps even out the balance a little bit. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little history lesson. I encourage you to go back and look at the playthrough of the arcade version of Smash TV. It looks much better than this, and it's a whole lot easier. When you've got 2 actual people controlling this instead of 1 person trying to do 2 things. I don't have enough hands. I don't have enough eyes. I just can't do this by myself. Anyway, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you again next time.